welcome to the new Geeks. Today, I am honored to have been given the opportunity to interview a very special guest who is going through some very interesting circumstances. So, without further ado, I'll let him introduce himself and why we're here.
Hi. Well, thank you. I'm Chris Wozniak, and and a former artist and writer for Marvel and DC Comics, and a little bit with some other companies. But today we're going to talk about the BatmanGate scandal, which is, the short version of that is, I gave a Batman plot to Michael Uslan, and he used it in the film and did not credit me, and that's not gonna that's not gonna happen. We're gonna blow this up. So you know, it just seems like like this is a common story and it happens a lot. But it's happened to me, and I don't feel like I need to let this slide. I think I've got enough proof to to prove everything I'm saying and documentation and everything. And I don't think there's any way around getting around the fact that it is my story and that they used it. So here we are.
So, before the potential scandal of BatmanGate, what got you into the comic book industry? Tell us about Chris Wozniak, the man.
Ooh, I grew up really, really poor. I'm from the projects in the Lower East Side of New York City, and when you grow up inner city like that, there's not a lot of opportunities to go to school or to get a good job or anything. Your parents don't have money; they don't know how to teach you about money or what to do, and you just kind of stay off of drugs, and that's about all you learn about life. So it was a way for me to make a living. I loved comics, and I knew a buddy of mine, that I had joined like comics with in high school. He started doing some assistant work for a Marvel inker, and he basically said, "Look, your guy needs more help. Why don't you come over?" And so that's how that went. I started doing backgrounds and stuff. On a bunch of American. It was a guy who was doing a lot of Marvel work at the time. He was a busy inker. His name was Art Nichols, um, and, uh, and 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 pretty soon I took over all the assistant work. My friend Mike moved on, and that's how it happened. And then we started going up into the office and meeting people and everything. And then you start showing samples, and you know, that's a common route for people in those days to break into comics.
So, it's safe to say that you did this for the love of the art, the passion for creativity, and drawing these iconic characters.
Yeah, especially when I started, like in those days, and now again, people that work in comics, they're not in it for the money. You did it because you love it. In those days, there was not a lot of money in comics, and we've kind of gone full circle and come back around to that because I'm shocked now what my friends tell me they're getting paid for Marvel. Because I also just had it's a whole other story, but I had a company myself for about 8 years. We hired a good two dozen Marvel and DC guys and stuff like that. And what we were paying them was a good third more than Marvel was paying, than DC was paying. And I was just basically, I set rates based on what I was making in the 80s. So I couldn't believe that, like, you leave the industry for 20 years and then you come back and people are making less money than when you were around. It's crazy. Yeah, in those days, I mean, I don't know too many guys. I'm completely self-taught, which is probably why I'm not the world's greatest comic book artist. But there's you had to get some kind of assistant gig and be shown the ropes, and how to, you know, just do all the basics and stuff. And you also need to be hanging around the office, which is not allowed anymore, but it was back then. And have guys give you pointers and tell you what's okay, what's not okay. A lot of things that I know now were shown to me by guys like Dick Giordano and Joe Orlando or something. They would just they'd see you around, you show your work, and they give you pointers and stuff. You know, and it was also um, a time like in those days. Everything was supposed to serve the story. And everything else, no matter what it is, coloring, how good your style is, or rendering, everything has to come secondary to that. That was the rule, and you know, and that's the way it should be. If something's not clear or something, is too fancy or too detailed, and it distracts from the reading experience of the story, it shouldn't be there. That was the old way of thinking.
What attracted you to filmmaking, and what were some of the inspirations for your Batman script?
Well, I mean, like I said, when in the office, when in comics, in those days, if you were an inker, it was hard to get, penciling work, and then if you were a penciler, it would be hard to get writing work because they see you a certain way, and that's all they want to do. But I always wanted to get out of penciling and into writing because it came easier to me. It was more natural, you know. And there was a time when, after the first Keaton movie, Archie Goodwin took over the Batman office, and Archie's coming from Marvel, so Archie didn't know me, so I figured here's my opportunity. I'll show him the script. And in those days, everybody wanted to do something at the Batman office. After the Keaton movie, after Dark Knight, Frank Miller's Dark Knight. It was just something that everybody in comics wanted to do. You wanted to do something at the
Huge
Batman
pop
office.
culture icon.
So yeah, it was a big character. So I wrote, I took it upon myself, and I wrote that Batman Riddler plot, which I wrote to be a sequel to Dark Knight, Miller's Dark Knight. And I figured if I'm going to do, a Batman story, I might as well go big and do something, epic. And I did, and and at the time, I was like, I don't know, 26 years old, 27, and and when I finished it, I thought, wow, this is the best Batman story ever. I thought, I had crushed it, but I brought it to Archie, I gave it to him, and then I had to nag him for 2, 3 weeks, and he, one day I was in the office, across from him, he had the corner office, I was caddy corner, and I think Kevin Dooley's office. Then Archie came over, and he was like, I read your script, he says, did you write that? And I was like, yeah. And then, he questioned me. He was like, did you write that by yourself? And I was like, yeah, it's my story. And Archie told me, he's like, yeah, I think it's great. It's a great story, but Paul and Jeanette, I'm never going to let you do a story because it was just too big. It was literally, and the comment that he said that stuck with me was like, if you were Frank Miller, we'd let you do that tomorrow, and I wanted to, I was too young to say, well, look, I just want to write it. I don't want to draw it. So I didn't really know how to push like that. After he was like, oh, they're not going to let you do it, and but that's what I should have said, but I didn't. I let it slide, and so I wound up with a Batman story that I wasn't using. So that was like 1990. So like 1993, over at Image, we tried to use it for Shadowhawk with Jim Valentino. And Jim said the same thing. He was like, "This is a great story, but it's a great Batman story. You know, um, why don't you just turn it into something original and um, do it like that?" So that's what we did. I created a character called Pulse, and I was supposed to do it with Mark Texera Tex, over at Image. And there in the first Shadowhawk trade paperback, like in the back of that, there's a little preview for it that we had just started working on it, and but then Jim Lee, came in and offered Tex, a very well-paying gig to do Union, if you remember that miniseries from Image, and so yeah, so Jim Lee hired him away from the project, and so then it got scrapped. I never got around to finishing a rewrite for it, you know, and I guess we might as well finish with the history of this thing. So then after Archie passed away, which is 1999, I think, something like this. It's somewhere around the year 2000 after Archie passed away. It was like, I heard, and I was like, I've got this story, and maybe I'll just submit it to DC again. So I pulled it out, I gave it a polish. That's when I added the Joker part to it, which wasn't there initially. That's the only difference from the very first draft and then the draft that I sent to DC in like the year 2000. So I sent it to the new Batman editor by email, and I submitted it again. It was like, hey, got this great old Batman story, blah blah blah. And so that sat there. Nothing happened with it again. And so 2008 rolls around, and I meet Michael Uslan. You know, so um, and also I should this comes after actually. So I meet Michael Uslan. He approaches my booth at a comic convention. It was New York Comic Con in 2008. I had a big display. I had a self-published comic I was going to do. It's called Barren Soil, and as simple as that. He comes over and he says, "I like the name of your comic book. You know, do you mind if I have a free copy? I'm always looking for good stories." And he tells me he's a film producer, gives me his card. You know, and so I didn't recognize the name. I didn't know anything. It didn't ring a bell or anything. But after the show, I went home. I looked him up, and I saw he was the producer of the Batman movies. And I've got a Batman story that I thought was great, and we never used. So obviously, that's a no-brainer. I was like, "Yeah, here's my Batman story." And I told him, "Look, this is a story we never got around to doing DC. It's a great story. Let's make a great Batman movie." And so in 2008, I think we are squarely in the Nolan era, you know. But Uslan doesn't respond to the email. I don't hear from him, But then when the next reboot rolls around, it's my plot, beat for beat, same twists, turns, same endings, and character motivations. It's the whole thing, soup to nuts. Just like done as a young reboot, everything taking place in Gotham. And so, I was shocked. I didn't know until because I don't watch superhero movies. I don't watch trailers. I only watch a trailer if it's a film that I don't know anything about. If it's something I know I'm going to see, I don't pay attention to teasers. I want to see it cold. So, I didn't see the movie until it was on HBO. And then, while I'm watching it, obviously I'm sitting there in disbelief, and it's infuriating. It's like, what? Yeah.
You know, in your videos, as I'm watching the details unfold, the way you structured your script, the story elements, and the plot details, the story itself is very much ahead of its time. It very much complements the modern era of filmmaking and, you know, certain current events that have happened in our modern times. It's very prophetic in a way. And it also seems like a story that would have fit rather well with a more experienced Justice League level Batman.
Yeah, that's the comment that I hear a lot is that people who are reading that plot that I wrote then now, everybody seems to think that left alone and done as is without any changes whatsoever, that it would have been a killer Ben Affleck movie, because it's an older Batman and everything, and it is a complete story. Everything's there. It's just a treatment, it's a plot, but it is a full complete story. Um, and and I kind of agree with that because that was the vision for it was to do an older Batman late in his career, and what Reeves did was just take my story and the only difference is that he did a young reboot and everything takes place in Gotham. The story otherwise is completely identical. Same everything, same beats, same turning points, same surprise endings, everything. There's nothing that doesn't match. You know, so it's hard to. And then there's that part in the second BatmanGate video, the BatmanGate 2 video, where I compare the character compositing and why it's done and everything just matches, and it's so complex, to do those character composite things, changing those scenes and everything, and bumping one to another. There's absolutely no way that it's not my story. It's impossible. That he wrote something, independently, and then it matches my story like that. That's a ridiculous thing to say.
It would be next to impossible to replicate the story that you did. And it was so far ahead of its time as far as the way people thought of how to make a Batman movie, what to write about a Batman movie. It's incredible stuff. It's really game changing stuff, industry changing, genre changing.
It's career altering too. I'm a single I'm a single dad. I have a 10-year-old daughter. To get a credit on the, and I clearly deserve some kind of co-writing credit. And I'm not even trying to take anything away from Matt Reeves because I thought his screenplay was good. I thought his direction was great. I liked the movie, but the fact that he came up with that story cold is just bullshit. And there's no other way to say it. You know, so but the the career opportunities to being associated with a film of that magnitude are life changing. That's all there is to it. I've got other projects, that like other Hollywood producers are looking at, stuff like that. They would go through in 2 seconds, if I got, a credit on the Batman film, and I deserve one. The next go round, which is when they're doing a reboot, then they start with my story, you know, and if they think they're going to do a sequel without anybody finding out about this, they're high because there's no way I'm gonna let this slide and just go, oh, well, they stole my story. Oh, yeah, okay. This is what stories and the comic book people. This is what they have to sell. This is how we feed our families. And these are mega wealthy dudes. Uslan and Reeves and everything. There's no reason. What's the budget for that movie? 200 million. There's no reason not to pay. For a story that you're going to use. That's crazy. And it's certainly wrong to just knock my name off and put Matt Reeves' name on it. When he did finish the screenplay and everything, but it's it's the foundation of it. The blueprint, as Houston likes to say, is my plot. So I mean,
What was your reaction initially when you saw your ideas on the big screen? When you saw your ideas unfolding, without your permission, without your due credit? What was that like?
I was on fire. I was so fucking upset. Um, I watched it. I explained this, but before we went live, but I hadn't seen the movie. I missed it. I live in a small town in the mountains, so if and when the Batman came through, it was at our local theater. Just played for a week, and I was too busy to go. I just missed it. So if you miss it, then you got to wait for Blu-ray or streaming or something. So I didn't get to see it in theaters at all. And I was talking with Chris Batista as it happens, and we mentioned the movie, and he convinced me to watch it because his opinion of it was that he thought it was the most Neil Adams portrayal of Batman so far, and that intrigued me, and I was like, okay, I'll watch it tonight. And so I sat down, I watched it on HBO, and and I was like, wow, this is starting to look really familiar. Yeah, and by the time they got to the scene where Paul Dano calls Bruce Wayne, calls Batman Bruce Wayne, it's the same setup and the same scene, and it's exactly what I wrote. Like the Riddler turns himself in specifically, and then Batman's talking to him in a they're the only ones there, and the Riddler's in the cell. It's all mine. And then it reveals that he knows who he is. I was like, holy shit! I paused the movie, and I called Batista, and I was like, I asked him, I said, did Michael Houston produce this movie? And he goes, no, mistakenly, he was wrong. And I was like, well, this is the plot I gave to Houston. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, this is like dead on. Seems like it's like it. And he was like, I don't think so. I was like, all right, I'll finish the movie. I'll call you later. And then I watched the rest of the movie, and right up until the mysterious Joker at the end and everything. That's exactly my ending. Exactly. So all the major plot points, all the beats, all the character motivations, the turning point. There's nothing that isn't from my plot. They are beat for beat exactly mine. So and then when the credits rolled, I saw executive producer Michael Uslan, and I was like, motherfucker. So I called Batista, and I was like, yeah, dude, this is a Uslan movie, and I tried to I immediately got online, went on Facebook, and I tried to ask Michael Uslan about it, and I had been unfriended on Facebook. So obviously right there, I wasn't feeling good about the situation. So, first thing in the morning, I vented to people, that night. The first thing in the morning, I got on with my internet provider, and I got an email dump of, all my emails going back to 2006 when I first started using that provider. And then I started making the video that day, I didn't even know how to really make a video. I'd only done one before, and so I had to figure it out as I went. Like I didn't know how to use the programs or how to animate things or record sound. Or I just figured it out as I went along. That's why it takes so long to get the videos out. I don't have a video guy here.
Michael Houston has always been touted as the Batman producer. There isn't a Batman film that gets made without, you know, him practically spearheading it.
Every Batman film. Yeah, since Keaton. As far as I know, Michael Michael Uslan himself, I think, or is at least now his company production company. I think he has the rights to produce like all the any standalone Batman movie. I don't know how that works when it comes to Justice League, and so I don't know what the deal is there. But Michael Uslan has has the rights to make the Batman movies. That's why he's executive producer of every film. Like everything starts with him and stops with him. You know. And he deserves credit for that too. I mean, that's he got it off the ground. He got the Keaton movie made when nobody wanted to touch that. Everybody was still thinking of Batman as a silly thing, And then even in The Office, when they when they found out that Michael Keaton had been cast, we thought the movie was going to be stupid, And then Uslan came in early, before the film dropped with to The Office at DC. He had the it was that promo shot of Keaton standing in front of the Batmobile. It was the first promo shot of him in costume, and it showed the Batmobile and everything. And he dropped that off at The Office, and Mike Carlin showed it to me, and we were all impressed. It was like, oh wow, that looks fantastic. so yeah.
Has there been any sort of feedback or communication between you and Michael Uslan or yourself and his team? Has there been any offers or any sort of communication of any kind, since the Batman has released?
And after this, there's been no response at all from anybody. I bang away almost daily at calling them out, on Twitter, Facebook, and they've gone dark, and they know why. They don't have a response to this. Especially after that second video, with the character compositing and everything, where it's all split, where things that could not possibly be coincidence are just right there in your face, and there's nothing that doesn't match, and there's no holes in my story whatsoever. Plus, I could document my story and everything like that. There's absolutely no way on God's green earth that they did not make this film based on my plot. So, what do you say to that? It's a coincidence that Matt Reeves wrote a movie that is beat for beat his story, that also contains rewrites from his plot while I was holding it, while his own producer was holding that story. That's a ridiculous claim. That's like saying that Matt Reeves can throw a dart off the space shuttle and hit a bullseye in the Sahara. It's nonsense.
This situation, in my opinion, is one in a million chance of an occurrence. It's one of those things that, is it possible? Sure, but is it probable? Highly unlikely. The details are too close. The bare bones of what you present in both of your videos that are up on YouTube, and I'll post them in the description below, but they're too close, too similar, in my opinion. You should look up these statistics on the probability of an occurrence of this nature.
You know what? That's a good point. I would love to find some internet statisticians to work that out exactly how improbable it is. That would be something to know. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
If I didn't thank you before, I'd like to thank you again for taking the time out of your day in this situation to give me the opportunity to speak on this situation, because, it was very compelling to see everything in your videos, as a Batman fan, as a fan of someone who, you know, uh, always strives for integrity and truth. Um, to see that and to just ignore it, I couldn't. I'm not some big YouTube channel or some big social media personality or anything like that, but I felt very compelled to reach out to you.
I mean, how else does the story get out? It's people like you that go, hey, this is not right. We need to talk about this, and that's what's important. It's every little every little bit that turns the tide, So this is important. Yeah.
Well, you should thank the craftsmanship in your videos. Like I said, it's very compelling stuff. It, instantly, if you're a fan of Batman or filmmaking in general, and you see this, you can't help but click. You can't help but watch it in its entirety, both videos, and then walk away from it going, okay, there has to be something to this. This stuff is it's too compelling, it's too close, it's too coincidental. Everything about it screams, someone should be really digging into this.
'Cause right now I get so involved with because now I made those two videos, and before I make more, I try to take a break and cool off or whatever. And I forget how bang on the proof is. It's like when I watch the videos myself, I'm like, Jesus, it convinces me. When I forget about it, I was like, oh yeah, there's that and there's this and there's that. They are compelling. And there's a reason for this. I drop my buds. And the reason for that is it just is what it is. I use the story. There's nothing that doesn't line up with exactly that. And there's no other way to explain it.
So at the end of the day, you're obviously a man with a purpose, obviously a man with a goal in mind. Do you feel comfortable talking about that goal? What is the outcome that you would like in this entire situation? How would you like BatmanGate to end for you?
First, yeah, I mean, the end goal is, like I said, I'm a single dad. I got a 10-year-old girl to take care of. There's a mortgage. I don't. My end goal is just to get paid like everyone else who worked on the film got paid. You know, uh, you know, yeah, of course it's fair. And literally to this day, I'm not. I am not going to go looking for damages or anything. I'm not trying to blow this up any worse than it needs to be. As long as no one on their side is calling me a liar, you know, fair compensation and credit is enough. I'm like, okay, you fucked up. Admit you fucked up. Write me a check, and I would like credit in future versions of the movie. That would be nice. Because to be able to tell my daughter like, look here, she would be proud of me. She likes Batman. You know, but obviously this conversation needs to begin with just fair credit and compensation, and to get paid like everyone else who contributed to that movie. And I can prove I contributed to it. There's no I don't know, and the people that actually watch the videos, like especially that second video, the BatmanGate 2 video, I get like 93% of sway. It's not like, oh, it's like 50-50 or anything. People that watch the video go, geez, this is not right. I just need more people to watch the video. Yeah.
Well, I'll do whatever I can with the, you know, small following that I garner, um, and get the word out on your behalf, and get BatmanGate, trending or in some way, shape, or form, get the right people in contact with you so that this can spread like wildfire, because this is a grassroots situation at this point, and we need that grass to be dry enough to catch fire so that they can spread. I In this situation, I try to keep up some form of journalistic integrity, even though I'm not a journalist. Um, you know, and sometimes I have to say maybe or possibly, but as a fan, I look at this and I go, there's no way, that this is anything other than what you're expressing.
You need to say may have. I don't know another way to. I've come out and said it because I can't find a way to excuse it. I would like to. I try to chalk it up to maybe an administrative error or something. But being as he's gone dark, and Uslan, who's the great protector of comic creator rights, has no comment on this. Yeah, I literally just reported him to the FBI. No exaggeration, 2 days ago. I mean, the story is it's intellectual property theft. There's no such thing as a Batman story that's ever been written. that that DC Comics has published where there's not a contract between the writer and the company. They don't own stories that people write. They have to come to agreement in writing with a contract before they can use the story. That is true for every Batman comic, every Batman story that's ever existed in the history of Batman. Nobody just writes stories and DC Comics goes, well, it's got Batman in it. That's our story. We can put it out. That is against the law. They have a, DC owns the trademark to the character, but anybody who writes a story owns a copyright to their particular story, and you have to come together and have an agreement. That's how the law protects both parties, and it looks like Uslan just like, why not? Fuck it, I'll just sell, he bypassed that, so it's wrong, it's theft, me. I keep wanting to say maybe it's accidental. I can't see it. I can't figure it out. If he's got something to say, like, if he's got a good excuse for this, I'll backtrack. I will say, I'm sorry. It was some kind of mistake on his part. And look, he admitted it. And, I will backpedal, if he has an explanation. And, so long as they make it right, I don't want to, you know, call them out like this. This it's not. I'm a private person. I don't. I born and raised in Manhattan. I live in the mountains for a reason. I'm not looking for attention. I don't want to, be on the internet with this nonsense. But my daughter's future is, these guys are taking expensive vacations with her college fund. I can't let this slide. You know,
And from our conversation before we actually started recording, you seem like an incredibly reasonable guy about the situation. You don't seem like somebody who's trying to strong arm anyone. You seem like someone who's willing to just have a simple conversation about the matter altogether and resolve it amicably.
and I'm willing to have that conversation if they, if there's some legitimate fuck up for how this happened, and I don't even care who's accountable. I don't care whose fault it is. I won't hold a grudge. I want this to be made right. You know, so I'm not going to go. If they can come out and say, look, this is what happened, and it shouldn't have happened, and we're going to fix it. I'm on board. I will take down every post and every comment that I've made, and and I will literally, I will hail them as heroes. Look, they screwed up, they made it right. These guys are good guys, and that's the end of that. This, this is not fun for me to have to call them out like this. These are people that I respected. That, I mean, I have a bunch of Matt Reeves movies on my Blu-ray shelf. Uh, but I don't know how to square it.
At the end of the day, you're just asking to be treated fairly. You know, you did a work, you put your craftsmanship, your ideas, your passion for art and creativity into this script. And you want to be able to present your case to them and to be treated fairly. I think that's fair, not to sound redundant.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, because there are two other writers on this. There are two other writers on this film, and I can guarantee you that they pulled a few $1 million a piece on it. You know, so I just want what's fair. Whatever that is, and nothing more. Like I said, I'm not looking to, career opportunities, and which is all true though. I mean, that's all stuff that's being denied to me. But if they come correct and say, okay, well, we'll make it right. I'd go along. I wouldn't make it bigger than it needed to be. You know,
And in situations like this, people try to drum up the situations of this nature as if the underdog has to, have a downtrodden story. Like they have to be the underdog of underdogs versus the evil corporation. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even have to be that. It has to be you're a man, a guy, a person who did a work, and that work was taken and utilized in a way that made a bunch of people money, and you didn't see a dime from it. At the end of the day, that's really all that you need, you know, to present your case and yourself and say, "Hey, listen, I just want what's mine." You know, let's work out what that is. What that price is. Let's work that out. You shoot me a check and an apology, and we're good to go. It doesn't have to go anywhere from there. Is it fair to say that?
I'll live without the apology. I'll just, the check and the credit, that's good enough, right? You don't have to massage my ego. I just want it made right, you know?
It's interesting because I highly doubt this is the first time this has ever happened. To this, even to this magnitude, with a character of this height and iconic nature. You know, I'm pretty sure there's quite a few comic book creators out there and comic book artists that have gone through similar situations, but just never had the guts enough to step up or the means, or a platform. You know, uh, and you're the guy who is saying, I'm not going to sit idly by and let this slide at all. You hopped right on this thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't just, like I said, art and stories and, people that work in, a lot of people are, under the, illusion that people that work in comics are wealthy and stuff like that. It's very few people that are day to day, comic book artists and stuff like that that are, like well off. I mean, I know name guys that you guys all know their names, and they would not be able to draw comics at all, unless they had a spouse that has a good job um, sometimes they even hear guys like are living with their parents in their parents' house and stuff like that. These are, name brand artists, that have trouble getting by and keeping the lights on, you know, as especially the way things are in the market today, DC and Marvel, they don't pay much at all now. I mean, they pay less than they did in the 80s. And I don't know why that is because that seems ridiculous. You gotta, I think I support anybody that is trying to do their own comic and because that's a lot of work too. Because you not only taking on, the making of the comic, you're taking on the publishing side of it. So anybody that's doing that is up to, his neck and, and work trying to get that done and get it out. And it's not a joke, you got to do a lot of work before you see a penny. And you don't know if you're going to see a penny, because you have to produce the content but and try to sell it before you get paid. So you're talking about months of work. That you're doing for free, hoping that someone will like your book or. So I mean, that's those people are, those are not people you should be screwing over. They're doing what they could do to make to make comics the way they know how, and to make a living at it. And for guys that are super wealthy dudes already, to just go, oh, well, I'll take that story. Why? You've got all the money in the world. Why can't you pay for it? You got plenty of money in the budget. What's in your ego that you need to take things? It just seems crazy. I don't get it. But I'm not a Hollywood executive.
Yeah, and what you're saying is absolutely understandable. Um, Everybody in life, especially in this generation of everyone likes to speak of equality and fair treatment. Well, here's a gentleman who gave his hard work, he put his intelligence into a script, and that script was taken, potentially, you know, um, more than likely, um, and utilized for something huge and major. You know, with that being said, do you have anything that you want to close out with? Any closing statements? Anything you'd like to say to the people, in general?
I just want to say that people are going to watch the BatmanGate videos. Start with the second one first, because I think it's a little more concise and easier to get. And the first one goes into a lot more detail. But if you watch BatmanGate 2, start with that. And then you should have an idea what's going on right there. And then if you want more, you can watch the first one and then, be really upset.
Yeah, I, hell, I was upset when I watched it. I was like, wow, it was very compelling stuff. Again, I tried to approach this unbiased, but hey, I'm a fan, you know, so I'm allowed to have whatever reaction I have. That being said, on that note, I appreciate you coming and giving me this opportunity to present your story to whoever I can touch, and maybe we can pay. I can pay this forward, and other people can pay it forward. after this interview here. Um, you know, this is dedicated to everybody who will ever or has ever gone through anything of this nature on a macro or micro level. Um, no one wants to have their work taken from them and not be compensated for it and not given the credit that they deserve at the end of the day. And unfortunately, this was a theme in the creation of the character Batman, from Bob Kane not giving the credit that Bill Finger deserved. And thankfully in 2016, that credit was rightfully given to Bill Finger. Um, you know, let's see if you can get a similar outcome. You know, but I thank you again for joining me and joining us and those listening. As we wrap up, do you have anything to promote or anything else you'd like to add?
That's it. I just need people to know. I mean, I got a book, I'm going to launch next month, but I'll promote that when the time comes, but thank you for this.
That was Chris Wozniak, and this is the New Geeks presenting to you #BatmanGate. Please do us a favor. Share this story to whoever you know. Whether you're a Batman fan, whether you like superhero films, or just someone who's a fan of integrity and honesty and truth and fairness, please share this to everybody you know. I'll be posting a link to each BatmanGate video in the description below. So again, please spread these videos like wildfire. Thank you for listening.